Hey guys, tonight we're starting somewhere green, sacred, and honestly, a little unexpected. Picture yourself standing in the middle of an ancient Egyptian garden, the Nile flowing gently in the distance, the scent of crushed herbs in the warm air, and directly in front of you, a patch of lettuce. Yes, lettuce. And not just any lettuce, this one's practically glowing under the moonlight. Sacred, celebrated, maybe even seductive. You probably wouldn't survive 5 minutes without a soy candle and your favorite playlist, right? But the ancient Egyptians, they had lettuce. And frankly, they loved it more than they loved gold. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, what time is it where you are and where are you listening from? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're barefoot, stepping gently on warm sand as you move through a quiet courtyard surrounded by sandstone walls. Palm trees whisper in the breeze, and the sun has just slipped below the horizon, leaving the sky the color of ripe figs. Before you, a gardener in a linen tunic is gently tending to rows of plants. Most of them are herbs or grains, but one row, just one, is filled with tall, upright stalks of lettuce. They're not the floppy, round-headed lettuce you might find in a sad office salad. No, these are long, upright, almost regal. And here's the part where things get weird in the best way possible. To the ancient Egyptians, lettuce wasn't just a vegetable. It was sacred, magical, essential. It wasn't eaten for flavor, it was grown for meaning. Specifically, it symbolized fertility, virility, and the cycle of rebirth. Basically, it was the spiritual equivalent of a green smoothie crossed with a love poem. The god Min, yes, that Min, who we'll be meeting more formally soon, was the deity of male fertility and often depicted, well, let's just say he wasn't shy. And right beside him, a big, proud, glowing head of lettuce. Always. Some historians still debate why lettuce was linked to fertility. Was it the way it stood tall and firm? Was it the milky sap it produced when cut? Or was it just because it grew fast and spread quickly in Egyptian gardens? One theory suggests that the white sap symbolized the essence of creation. You get where we're going with this. But beyond all that, there was something calming about the way Egyptians treated lettuce. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't extravagant, yet it held a place in temples, in tombs, and in medicine. You kneel beside one plant and run your fingers along the rough, upright leaves. It smells earthy, fresh, and vaguely bitter. Not entirely unlike your last failed attempt at going vegan. And as night settles in, you start to hear it, the rhythmic hum of night insects, the soft splash of Nile water against stone, and somewhere in the distance, a low, melodic chant. A priest? A ritual? Or maybe just a bedtime hymn to thank the gods for another fertile day. You lie back in the sand. The stars are sharp above you, the air's still warm, and the smell of sacred lettuce still clinging to your hands. Somewhere behind your eyelids, you sense the story unfolding, because this isn't just about a plant. It's about a civilization that looked at the world and said, yes, gold is great, but have you tried lettuce? And you're about to see why. You close your eyes, not to escape, but to begin. You're still lying there, the sand beneath your back just warm enough to remind you this is Egypt. Not a beach resort, but a living, breathing empire built on rhythm, ritual, and riverbanks. The stars blink lazily overhead. Somewhere nearby, a frog croaks once, maybe disapprovingly. You sit up slowly and glance again at the garden. The lettuce stands tall, unshaken by the night breeze, like a tiny army of botanical overachievers. As you move closer, you begin to understand just how deep this obsession went. This wasn't some passing culinary trend. No chef was putting lettuce foam on duck confit. This was lettuce as a cosmic symbol. A sacred plant tied not just to fertility, but to life itself. The Nile had many gifts: papyrus, fish, the occasional crocodile cameo, but nothing as quietly important as what it grew in its soil. And the Egyptians? They treated growing things like they were messages from the gods. You walk the edge of the garden and hear soft footsteps behind you. A man joins you, older, draped in white linen, eyes lined with kohl. He doesn't speak, just gestures to a spot under a fig tree where 2 clay tablets rest. He picks one up and reads slowly. It's a hymn to lettuce, and not a short one. You listen politely as he recites verses praising its strength, its sacred sap, its connection to Min, the god of fertility. The lettuce was believed to enhance male virility, yes, but also to balance the body, to calm the stomach, soothe the nerves, and anchor the soul in moments of unrest. More precious than gold, he finally says, in a voice that sounds like parchment folding. You blink. Wait, really? He nods, serious as an accountant. Gold feeds pride, lettuce feeds life. Okay, hard to argue with that. Some historians still debate whether lettuce was truly held in higher regard than gold. It's possible this reverence was symbolic, tied more to religious rites than actual market value. But others argue that in certain temple economies, offerings of fresh produce, especially lettuce, were considered more meaningful than coins or jewelry. Gold was wealth, lettuce was divine alignment. You imagine a priest entering a temple with his arms full of greens, while gold coins sat unnoticed in a jar. Somewhere, an ancient tax collector would be weeping. You follow the man deeper into the garden. There, small stone carvings sit beneath the leaves. Each one bears the image of Min, tall, proud, eternal, and always next to a stiff stalk of lettuce. They weren't trying to be subtle. The message was, grow strong, like this, like him. You gently touch one carving. The stone is warm from the day's heat, rough to the fingers, but worn smooth by centuries of reverence. Imagine a world where your worth wasn't tied to diamonds, but to how well you nurtured a garden. Where temple offerings weren't about grandeur, but growth. Where lettuce was not just food, it was philosophy. You move to a wooden bench, or what might have been a bench once, and sit beneath the hanging branches of a pomegranate tree. There, someone has carved a message in faded hieroglyphs. You trace the symbols slowly, your fingers translating the ancient poetry. He who eats of the green sleeps without fear. He who grows the green is beloved by the gods. He who mocks the green may wake up cursed with gas. You smile. Even the ancients had a sense of humor. A soft breeze rustles the lettuce again. They don't sway. They hold firm, upright, eternal. And you begin to see it, not as a joke, not as irony, but as a gentle, leafy truth. This was a culture that found holiness in the humble, that saw sleep not as escape but as renewal, made better, made deeper by what they grew, by what they respected, by what they let bloom. You lean back again, and for a moment, the leaves seem to whisper, not loudly, just enough to remind you that even the smallest things, when grown with care, can become sacred. Tomorrow you'll meet the god behind the lettuce, but tonight, let the garden breathe for you. Let the Nile murmur its lullaby, and let the idea settle gently into your mind. Gold glitters, but lettuce grows. The garden fades as your eyes drift closed, but when you open them again, you're no longer in the gentle shade of pomegranates. Now, you're in a temple. Massive pillars rise around you, carved with reliefs of gods, animals, and of course, lettuce. The walls glow faintly with the flicker of oil lamps, casting long shadows that sway like dream fragments. The air smells of frankincense, stone, and something green. In the center of the hall stands a towering statue, muscular, confident, with one arm raised in eternal greeting. And yes, most noticeably, unmistakably, blessedly, gloriously, anatomically enthusiastic. This is Min, the god of male fertility, and he's flanked by carvings of upright lettuce so symmetrical it feels more like geometry than gardening. You stare, you blink, you try very hard to keep a straight face, because while you might be snickering inside, the ancient Egyptians were not. Min was no joke. He was one of the oldest deities in their pantheon, revered since the earliest dynasties, a god of fertility, harvest, virility, and awkwardly but confidently, erections. His image was carried in parades, honored in temples, and often associated with the annual flooding of the Nile. And always, he was accompanied by a head of sacred lettuce. Why? Well, some say the lettuce's shape, tall, erect, firm, was a clear enough symbol. Others point to the plant's milky sap, which oozes when cut, as symbolic of, well, creative energy. Some historians still debate whether the connection between Min and lettuce was biological, spiritual, or just wonderfully poetic. But the association was clear. If you wanted things to grow, crops, babies, your family legacy, you paid your respects to Min and his leafy green sidekick. You walk the perimeter of the temple, your footsteps echoing. Offerings are arranged at Min's feet, bundles of barley, tiny stone phalluses, and rows of lettuce, carefully washed and stacked like holy scrolls. A priest nearby chants in low rhythmic tones, his voice as smooth as silk soaked in honey. He looks up at you. Do you seek fertility? You pause. I'm just here for the history. He smiles knowingly. Same thing. A young initiate approaches carrying a clay cup. It's filled with something green and viscous, smelling like cucumbers and ambition. Lettuce tonic, he offers. You sip cautiously. It's not terrible, kind of earthy, kind of bitter, very ancient smoothie. You imagine it being marketed today with words like cleanse, detox, or awaken your inner harvest energy. The priest walks beside you, pointing out murals along the wall. One shows Min blessing a couple in bed, with a head of lettuce hovering helpfully nearby. Another shows him guiding a plow through fields of lettuce, smiling broadly, accompanied by birds and rays of sunshine that feel suspiciously suggestive. It's here you realize lettuce wasn't just symbolic, it was functional. Used in rituals, offered in tombs, grown in palace gardens, pressed into tonics, and celebrated annually in the Festival of Min, where followers paraded statues and lettuce alike through the city in joyous celebration of growth, pleasure, and life itself. Some say the lettuce carried protective properties, not just for physical health, but for spiritual balance. Others believed it helped with digestion, calmness, and yes, sleep. We pass an inscription carved deeply into a column. He who feeds on Min's green shall be strong in seed, firm in thought, and gentle in rest. You smile. It's oddly beautiful, and kind of like something you'd find stitched on a very niche Etsy pillow. You reach the rear of the temple where soft cushions are laid beneath a sky-lighted dome, a perfect spot for resting, maybe dreaming, maybe growing. You lie down, not just because the ancient lettuce tonic is settling in your belly, but because it feels right. The stone beneath you is warm. The statue of Min watches over the chamber, not imposing, not crude, but calm, proud, steady. You close your eyes again, the hum of the temple soft around you. Lettuce rustles in the nearby garden, and somewhere, a priest's voice fades into chanting lullaby. Because tonight, you've met the god of greens, and you realize, perhaps for the first time, that there is power in plants, and peace, and maybe even just enough sleep to carry you through the next chapter. Tomorrow, you'll attend the feast where lettuce isn't just eaten, it's exalted. But for now, you drift, wrapped in quiet, watched over by a statue and a salad. You awaken to music. Not the kind with lyrics or drums. This is gentler, older. A low thrum of reed pipes and the distant pat-pat of hand drums, like a heartbeat slowed by sunshine. The scent of roasted grain and crushed herbs drifts in on the breeze. You're no longer in the temple. Now you're in a feast, a grand one. Tables stretch across a wide courtyard shaded by tall date palms. Ceramic platters overflow with food. Figs, honey cakes, barley bread, and yes, lettuce. Mountains of lettuce. Rows of upright, firm, dew-glossed lettuce stacked like trophies. You blink slowly. Your stomach makes a noise that might translate to respectfully requesting permission to join. The guests wear linen robes dyed in soft yellows and greens. Gold glints in the sunlight, but no one's showing off. It's not that kind of party. It's a festival of fertility and renewal, and everyone's here to eat well, laugh softly, and grow things. A priestess welcomes you with a goblet of chilled wine laced with herbs. It helps the spirit bloom, she says. You believe her instantly. You find your place on a cushioned bench, and as you settle in, a man beside you, plump, cheerful, smelling faintly of honey and coriander, leans in and whispers, "They say Pharaoh once turned down gold for a plate of lettuce this tall," lifting his hand to shoulder height. You raise an eyebrow. "Seriously?" He nods, stuffing a lettuce leaf into his mouth. Gold doesn't keep you regular, a valid point. Some historians still debate whether lettuce truly held more ceremonial value than precious metals, but during festivals, it certainly took center stage. Not just as a side dish, but as a sacred food, offered first to the gods, then to the guests, a kind of holy hors d'oeuvre. You glance around the courtyard and notice patterns. Before each plate is a small bowl of lettuce leaves, sprinkled with powdered herbs. Everyone eats from it first, in silence, eyes closed. It's not just a snack, it's a ritual. The first bite is meant to clear the mind, the second to open the heart, the third to prepare the body for renewal. You try it. The texture is crisp, the taste, bitter at first, then surprisingly sweet. The bitterness pulls you into the moment, sharp, earthy, real. The sweetness lingers like a reward for your patience. It makes you slow down, breathe deeper. It's strange how lettuce, of all things, is commanding the room with such quiet authority. You watch as a young couple across from you feeds each other small bites of lettuce like it's cake at a wedding. Two elders clink their clay cups and giggle. Children weave garlands of lettuce stems, wearing them like soft green crowns. There's laughter, but no shouting. Music, but no urgency. Conversation, but no interruptions. The entire feast moves like a single contented breath. In with stories, out with tension, and for a while, you forget you're in a historical memory. You just are. Here. Eating greens in the sun, surrounded by people who believe that peace can be grown. Someone announces the lettuce offering. A group of dancers enters the courtyard, carrying woven baskets stacked high with the most perfect, tallest heads of lettuce you've ever seen. They're brought to a raised stone altar at the center, just beneath a carved relief of Min. The crowd stills. A boy steps forward, maybe 12 years old, and places one head of lettuce carefully on the altar. The priest blesses it with water and murmurs a prayer that sounds more like poetry. Let what grows in silence nourish us. Let the green remind us of what we forget. Let the bitter teach us how to sleep. You swallow, not from food, but from something older, deeper. The feeling that you're witnessing something sacred hidden in plain sight. Some scholars still argue that the Feast of Lettuce was metaphor, not memory, that what you're seeing is a symbolic retelling, not a literal ritual. But sitting here, warm and full and humbled by a vegetable, you think, does it matter? Because in this moment, it's real, and real enough to rest in. You lean back on your cushion, full in body and spirit. As the feast continues around you, the sounds blend together. Music, laughter, the soft crunch of leaves and wind through date palms. You close your eyes, not out of boredom, but because lettuce somehow has made you feel safe enough to. Tomorrow, you'll visit the royal gardens, where this sacred plant was cultivated with care and ceremony. But tonight, you sleep the sleep of someone who's been well-fed, well-welcomed, and gently reminded that sometimes the most powerful things aren't loud, they're leafy. Morning arrives not with a trumpet, but with a breeze, warm, slow, and gently citrus-scented. You blink awake beneath a linen canopy, still nestled among the cushions of last night's feast. The courtyard is quiet now. Traces of laughter still linger in the air like perfume clinging to a scarf. You rise and stretch, bones cracking softly like old papyrus, and follow a narrow path winding through columns. Beyond the feast, beyond the temple, lies the real heart of this story. The royal gardens. You pass under an arched gate carved with vines and hieroglyphs. Beyond it spreads a vision so precise, so deliberately arranged, it almost doesn't feel real. Long rectangular pools mirror the pale morning sky. Papyrus rustles along their edges, palm trees stand like sleepy guards, and in perfect geometric rows, hundreds of upright stalks of lettuce. This isn't a kitchen garden. This is a sanctuary, a laboratory of greenery, a kingdom of leaves. You step onto the soft soil between the beds. Your sandals leave gentle prints, a quiet intrusion. Gardeners in white robes move between the rows like priests, using curved bronze tools to trim, fluff, and encourage the plants with whispered blessings. One of them, young, sun-tanned, with lettuce in his hair, smiles at you and says, "They grow straighter when you speak kindly." You believe him, because here, lettuce is not a food, it's a message. Every plant is carefully spaced, supported by carved wooden stakes shaped like ankhs. Clay vessels beside each row collect morning dew to sprinkle over the roots. You run your fingers over the leaves, cool, crisp, full of potential. The kind of touch that makes you want to write a sonnet about salad. Some historians still debate whether the royal gardens were truly this elaborate, or if our records are exaggerated by poetic scribes. But fragments of wall paintings, still vivid after thousands of years, show gardens laid out in sacred symmetry, with lettuce plots clearly marked beside lilies and date palms. You're led down a shaded path by an elderly gardener, his voice raspy like papyrus being unrolled. He tells you that Pharaoh himself once walked these rows each morning. To observe? To harvest? You ask. He shakes his head gently. To listen. Apparently, the Pharaoh believed the garden whispered advice, that the lettuce would lean subtly in the direction of good counsel and droop when the nation needed rest. It's unclear whether this was political metaphor or sleep-deprived mysticism, but the royal court documented it meticulously. The lettuces are upright today. We may proceed with negotiations. The leaves curled slightly in the west. Delay the coronation. You stop beside a particularly proud row of lettuce, tall, verdant, flawless. And then you notice carved stones at its base, tiny plaques like shrines. Each bears the name of a child born after a royal fertility rite. Some plaques are gilded, others are simple, but every one was placed here with hope. These weren't just crops, these were witnesses to wishes. You kneel. The earth is soft, the lettuce above you, tall and slightly swaying in the morning air. A soft bell rings in the distance, not a call to action, but a signal of reflection. Gardeners pause, bow slightly, return to their work without a word. It's peaceful in a way you didn't expect, and somehow sleepy, in the best sense. Not tired sleepy, not bored sleepy, content sleepy. Somewhere between gardening and prayer, the Egyptians had created a space where rest was woven into purpose. And that rest, that pause, is contagious. You find a shady bench near the edge of the pool and sit. The light plays across the water like a quiet lullaby. You close your eyes, not to escape, but to absorb, to grow inward, to rest, like a garden. Tomorrow you'll visit a palace and witness how lettuce outshone gold at the royal table. But for now, let the leaves do their work. Let the air move slow. And let yourself drift, soft, rooted, and green. The garden fades behind you as the morning deepens into a golden hush. You walk slowly now, feet tracing sun-warmed stone, following a winding path lined with hibiscus and low laughter from somewhere behind the trees. Ahead, through towering pillars and the scent of roasted sesame, stands your next destination, the palace. Not just any palace, a royal dining hall, reserved for the pharaoh and those important enough to sit near him without being turned into a statue for chewing too loudly. You're led in through a side entrance, past linen curtain corridors and attendants balancing trays of figs with monk-like concentration. Everything gleams. Even the silence feels polished. Then you see it. A long, gleaming banquet table carved from dark acacia wood, inlaid with lapis lazuli and ivory, stretching across the room like a quiet promise. And at every place setting, beside gold plates and polished goblets, is a small porcelain bowl filled with lettuce. Perfect, pristine, chilled with morning dew and arranged like a crown of green flames. A palace servant sees your expression and chuckles softly. You thought the gold would be the centerpiece, didn't you? You nod, still not over it. Gold pleases the eyes, she says. Lettuce pleases the gods, and the stomach, and sometimes the ego. You take a seat on a cushioned bench beside the table. Other guests begin to arrive, priests, scribes, high officials, each greeted with a polite bow and a fresh spritz of rosewater. No one touches the gold plates. They reach for the lettuce first. This is not by accident. Some accounts describe how Pharaoh Ramses II would not begin any royal meal until the lettuce was placed before him, upright, whole, and blessed. It was considered a sign of vitality, humility, and divine favor. Only once it was served did the meal begin. You watch as the pharaoh enters. He is tall, poised, and carries the kind of stillness that comes from believing your name will be carved into stone for eternity. He lifts a single leaf from the bowl, holds it to the sky, and murmurs something too ancient to translate, but you feel the weight of it. Then he eats it. Only then do the others begin. You follow suit. It's crisp, cool, slightly bitter, and strangely refreshing. It doesn't overpower the senses, it grounds them. Makes the honey-sweet date cakes and slow-roasted lamb taste deeper, richer, more earned. As you chew thoughtfully, you glance down the table. Gone is the glimmer of jewels. What draws your eye are the variations in lettuce bowls. Some sprinkled with crushed nuts, others with coriander blossoms, a few dyed slightly blue from soaking in lotus water. This is not salad. This is status. Some historians argue that the royal preference for lettuce was symbolic, a performance of humility. Others insist it was practical. Lettuce helped digestion, promoted restful sleep, and didn't make anyone burp in front of Pharaoh. Either way, the message was clear. Power doesn't always need to roar. Sometimes it grows quietly. Halfway through the meal, a scribe rises and begins to recite a poem. You half expect it to be about conquest, or architecture, or maybe someone's heroic pet cat. But no, it's a poem about lettuce. Green is the hand that tends the earth. Green is the gift the Nile returns. Green is the quiet that feeds the mind. Green is the sleep that comes after. You lean back, stunned not by its complexity, but its sincerity. In a palace filled with gold and silk and strategy, the most sacred thing was something you could grow in a clay pot by the kitchen window. As the meal winds down, musicians play a slow melody on reed flutes. The palace dims, the air cooled by hanging fans and gentle breezes funneled through stone corridors. You don't feel full in the way modern meals might leave you. You feel satisfied, balanced, rooted. Tomorrow you'll drink the ancient tonic said to calm the mind and carry dreams to safe places. But tonight, you walk out of the palace under the setting sun, your hands still smelling faintly of crushed lettuce, your thoughts softer than before, and your breath moving with the rhythm of a civilization that believed the quietest things might be the most divine. The sky above you is now a soft, sleepy orange, that in-between light where the day exhales and the night hasn't quite decided what it wants to be yet. You're walking alone now, sand curling gently beneath your sandals, a warm breeze tugging at your sleeve like a child asking for a story. You follow the breeze, naturally, and it leads you to a small courtyard nestled between two limestone walls. A simple stone bench waits beneath a fig tree, and across from it a low table covered in small ceramic cups. Each one holds a liquid that glows faintly green under the fading light. A man in a striped headscarf greets you with a knowing smile. "You've had the feast," he says. "Now it's time for the drink." You sit, curious. He pours a dose of the glowing green fluid into a wide, shallow cup and pushes it toward you. Lettuce tonic. But this isn't the refreshing salad in a glass you tasted at Min's temple. This brew is thicker, earthier, smells like cucumber, mint, and something herbal and deep, like old books or moss-covered stone. This one, the man explains, is not for thirst, for the mind. He says the tonic was once served only at night, in preparation for dreams, rituals, or sacred sleep. Made from a special species of wild Egyptian lettuce, known for its calming, almost hypnotic properties, this was believed to soothe anxiety, quiet intrusive thoughts, and soften the soul for dreaming. Some scholars debate whether this lettuce actually contained mild sedatives, or if the effect was purely psychosomatic, the result of belief, not biology. Others point to writings in ancient medical papyri which describe lettuce as a treatment for mind storms and heart restlessness. The man gestures to a low couch. "Lie back," he says. "Don't drink quickly. Let the green carry you." You sip. It's bitter at first, bold with a bite, but then something shifts. It rounds into warmth, like velvet melting into your chest. Your shoulders release tension you didn't know you were holding. Your jaw softens. The world slows by half a beat. You lie down. Above you, the fig tree sways gently, its leaves whispering secrets in a language you almost understand. The man sits beside you and speaks in a voice like wind through papyrus. "We are not meant to run forever. Not every thought must be chased. Let the green quiet your feet. Let the night open like a garden." You feel floaty, not dizzy, just distant, like you're stepping back from yourself with kindness. Around you, others begin to arrive quietly, respectfully. Some carry dream journals, some small talismans. One woman wears a crown of lettuce stems woven into a braid. Each receives a cup, each lies back, each begins the journey inward. This, you realize, is a ritual of release. Not a sleep aid, a dream preparation. And as the green drink settles inside you, your breath deepens. The world softens its edges. The stars begin to show themselves, shy and scattered at first, then clearer, bold. You blink, and the fig tree becomes a ceiling of stars. And your body becomes somewhere distant music begins, not a lullaby. Not quite, just resonance. The kind that threads between the ribs, settles behind the eyes, and says gently, "You are safe." Some historians believe the lettuce tonic was part of temple sleep rituals, used to guide dreamers toward divine visions. Some claim it was served in mourning to ease the passage into grief. Others think it was simply a practical sleep draught for overworked scribes who couldn't stop thinking about taxes. You don't know which version is true, but lying here, warm and still, you understand why it lasted for centuries. Because something about it works, not with force, but with softness. You close your eyes, not to escape, but to float. Tomorrow you'll enter a temple where priests used lettuce to guide dreams, and sometimes to read the future. But tonight, Let the tonic hold you. Let the green sing its lullaby. Let your thoughts fade like stars into dawn. You awaken not in bed, not in a palace, not under a fig tree, but somewhere quieter than all of those. A room carved from sandstone, lit by oil lamps that burn low and steady. The walls curve gently inward like a womb, the ceiling painted with lotus blossoms and drifting clouds. It's cool here and dry and filled with the faint smell of crushed leaves, ink, and wax. You're in a dream temple. Somewhere between monastery and sleep clinic, these sacred spaces were places where ancient Egyptians came not to worship gods, but to meet them in sleep. A soft voice breaks the silence. You've taken the tonic? A priest asks, his robe tied with lettuce stem fibers, his fingers stained green from herbs. You nod, even though your tongue still tastes like mint and moss. He leads you deeper, past a series of stone archways and into a chamber even more silent than the last. Here, the air feels suspended, like the room itself is holding its breath. Reclining mats line the floor, each tucked neatly with linen pillows and tiny bundles of dried wild lettuce. Above, symbols for Min, Thoth, and Bes, gods of fertility, wisdom, and dreams, dance across the walls. The priest offers you a scroll. Instructions for sacred sleep. 1. Clear the mind by whispering your question aloud. 2. Eat nothing but lettuce for a day prior. Too late for that. 3. Recline, breathe deeply, and wait for the god to arrive. 4. Do not chase the dream. Let it come to you. 5. Record what you remember upon waking. Even nonsense. You smile. Half of this sounds like a guided meditation. The other half sounds like your weirdest Wednesday. You're guided to your mat. It's soft, handmade, faintly scented with what might be blue lotus. A dried lettuce stalk rests beside your pillow. Symbolic, yes, but also oddly comforting. Like a bedtime plushie made by farmers. As you lie down, the priest dims the lamps, and the silence grows thick. You hear only your own breathing, the occasional creak of stone, the near imperceptible flutter of a moth somewhere overhead, and then nothing. But not the scary kind of nothing. This is sacred stillness, the kind of quiet you didn't know your brain was capable of. And in that stillness, the dream begins. You don't fall asleep, you cross over. At first, you're walking in a field. Not quite real, not quite imagined. The lettuce grows taller here, taller than a person. Their leaves rustle in a language only the unconscious understands. One of them leans toward you, whispers something in your ear. You can't remember the words, but you remember the feeling. Relief, like something unknotted itself in your chest and floated away. You wander. You meet a figure in a green robe with eyes like closed windows. They hand you a clay bowl filled with water and ask, "What will you plant next?" You don't answer. Not yet. And just like that, you wake, back in the temple chamber, back under the lotus-painted ceiling. The priest is there, seated near your mat, watching you with that expression only people who've seen other people dream truly ever wear. He hands you a reed pen and a scrap of papyrus. "Write," he says, "even nonsense." You scrawl something quickly before it fades. "The lettuce told me it forgives me. It never wanted to be gold." You blink, laugh softly. What does it mean? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Some historians believe these sleep temples were among the earliest forms of therapy, that dreams were not just private illusions, but communal wisdom offered by gods, shaped by plants, and remembered in pieces. Others dismiss it as ritualized napping with extra steps. But you? You're not so sure anymore. You roll up the papyrus and tuck it into your sleeve. Tomorrow, you'll visit a marketplace where lettuce became not just sacred, but currency. But for now, as you leave the temple slowly, blinking at the new day, you feel different, lighter, like a question that doesn't need an answer anymore. Only peace and breath, and maybe a good salad. You step out of the dream temple and into the light of mid-morning. The sun is gentler now, as if it too had a deeply restorative nap. The stone beneath your feet is warm but not hot, and your body feels like it's made of something lighter. Linen, maybe, or daydreams. You follow a winding road through the city's heart, where the sacred and the ordinary blur together in the dust and bustle. Merchants call from their stalls. Children chase birds. A goat looks at you like it knows your secrets. You've arrived at the marketplace. But not just any market. This is the ancient Egyptian version of a farmer's market. Temple bazaar, stock exchange, and Instagram ad for ancient superfoods, all rolled into one. It smells like cumin and clay, like fresh bread and dried dates and sweat and story. And everywhere, lettuce, stacked in bundles, braided into garlands, pressed into flat cakes, sold in small jars as dried powder, hung in baskets from awnings like edible chandeliers. You watch as a woman offers a head of particularly proud lettuce to a trader in exchange for a bolt of linen. He nods solemnly. Deal made. Lettuce, not gold, not silver, was accepted currency in some temple economies. Some historians argue this was symbolic. Others insist it was real. In temple districts, especially during harvest festivals or rites of Min, lettuce was so valuable it held economic weight. A kind of green coinage in a society that measured wealth in more than just metal. You move past a spice vendor offering fertility blends made with powdered lettuce leaf and ground fig seed. She leans toward you, whispering like someone selling a secret. Sleep better. Dream sweeter. Remember more. You thank her, politely. A little boy tugs at your sleeve, offering a clay amulet shaped like, yes, a head of lettuce. You take it, of course. It's a bit lumpy, but there's something charming about it. A souvenir from the world's quietest obsession. In a quieter corner, you notice a scholar seated cross-legged on a mat, surrounded by scrolls. He's reading a long list of lettuce taxes, actual temple records listing how many heads of lettuce were owed by whom and when. One entry catches your eye. 4 heads, late by 2 days. Penalty, silence in temple for 1 moon cycle. Ruthless, the scholar chuckles. Lettuce was power. It wasn't just eaten, it structured society. Tithes, offerings, even disputes. In some towns, the size of your lettuce patch determined your standing in the community. You imagine a neighborhood HOA arguing over lettuce height. The scholar continues, some say the rise of temple lettuce economies led to actual tension between priesthoods. Others argue it was just, well, lettuce envy. You thank him and wander onward. At one stall, an old man is selling lettuce-based ink, used for writing down dreams and rituals. He dips a reed brush into a tiny jar and writes a single hieroglyph on your palm. Peace. You don't want to wash it off. You turn a corner and find yourself in the middle of an open square where people sit on cushions, drinking lettuce tonic like it's spiced wine, trading not just goods, but dreams. One woman offers a head of lettuce in exchange for someone to listen to her dream from last night. It had birds, she says, and a door made of sand. Someone else trades a clay model of a garden in exchange for a story. It's not commerce here, it's communion. You realize this wasn't just a market, it was a reflection of a world where people believed that rest, fertility, growth, and kindness were worth something. Tangible, measurable, tradable. Some scholars might roll their eyes. It's just lettuce, they'd say. But here in this square full of barter, breath, and blooming dreams, you know better. You close your eyes for just a moment, breathing in the scent of fresh herbs, roasted grains, and the faint sweetness of sun-warmed greens. Tomorrow, you'll witness a theft. A legendary lettuce heist that shook a temple and maybe offended a god. But tonight, you carry your clay amulet, your palm marked with peace, and the quiet understanding that sometimes the most valuable things are the ones that grow. The market fades behind you as the afternoon sun begins to stretch long, lazy shadows across the sand. The wind has picked up slightly, not fierce, just playful, swirling bits of papyrus and flower petals in the air like confetti after a very polite parade. You're walking now through a quieter part of the city, past the walls of a once glorious temple complex. Cracked stone, faded paint, a place where the gods used to whisper through incense smoke, and apparently where someone once stole a lot of lettuce. Yes, you're here to witness the great lettuce heist of 1287 BC. Not the most intimidating crime in ancient history. No pyramids toppled, no royal blood spilled, but among the temple records, this event still stands out. Not because of what was taken, but because of who it offended, Min himself. You find yourself in a shadowy courtyard with vines creeping up the sandstone. A group of scribes is gathered, scrolls scattered, looking deeply concerned. One of them throws up his hand, sending a lettuce leaf sailing dramatically into the air. You approach just in time to hear one mutter, 72 heads, gone overnight, and the festival is in 3 days. Another groans, we offered barley, incense, even dried figs, but without the lettuce, the blessing won't take. Apparently, someone broke into the temple garden and made off with every sacred lettuce head earmarked for the Festival of Min, the biggest fertility celebration of the year. The high priest is not pleased. He emerges in a billow of robes and righteousness. His staff thuds against the stone with each step. "This is blasphemy," he hisses. "We will not anoint the altar with celery. Never again." You try not to giggle, but to them, this is deadly serious. Because the Festival of Min is not just a party, it's a carefully orchestrated ritual of planting, parading, blessing, and of course, offering lettuce to ensure the year's fertility, both agricultural and, shall we say, interpersonal. Without those sacred heads of lettuce, the gods might withhold the Nile's flood, or worse, withhold sleep. One scribe is scribbling down possible suspects. Another starts a tally of remaining lettuce, one wilted head in the kitchens, two in the priest's chamber, questionably fresh, one accidentally sat on. The temple is in chaos. Whispered rumors swirl like sandstorms. A rival priesthood did it. The Nubians stole it as revenge for the cucumber tax. No, it was ghosts, angry salad ghosts. Somewhere in the madness, you spot a young acolyte quietly sneaking a glance at a satchel tucked beneath his robe. It's dripping, green. You gently approach. He startles, tries to hide it, fails completely. You peek inside. Sure enough, lettuce. Perfect, pristine, dozens of them. He confesses, "It wasn't theft," he insists. "It was preservation. I feared the courtyard heat would ruin them. I moved them to the cool chamber under the apothecary. No one listened when I tried to explain." You help him present his case to the high priest. There's shouting, then silence, then a slow, reluctant nod. The lettuce is returned, still crisp, still sacred. A catastrophe narrowly avoided. Later, the acolyte brings you a cup of tonic in thanks. "Min forgives quickly," he says, "as long as the greens are returned in good condition." Some historians believe this tale was exaggerated over time, a temple drama turned fable. But scrolls found in a Theban archive do reference the incident of the vanished offering and list a temporary replacement lettuce statue made of alabaster. Just in case. As evening falls, the temple buzzes with preparation. The lettuce is replanted in ceremonial bowls, the altar is clean, the musicians rehearse, the high priest even smiles, once. And you sit beneath a lantern and think about how something so simple, so green, could cause such panic, reverence, and ultimately relief, because it was never just about the plant, it was about belief, ritual, continuity, and maybe, just maybe, respecting the quiet power of vegetables. Tomorrow, you'll visit a tomb and see how lettuce traveled even into the afterlife. But tonight, you sleep knowing that even the gods get nervous when the lettuce goes missing, and somehow that makes the world feel just a little more human. The desert night is quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you wonder if the stars are listening. You walk beneath them now, the moon painting silver across the sand, your footsteps muffled in the dust of centuries. You're heading somewhere most people only go once in their life, a tomb. But this isn't a place of mourning. Tonight, you're visiting a space where the boundary between life and death was softened by ritual, by faith, and by lettuce. You pass the temple gates, then down a sloped corridor carved into limestone, the air cooling with each step. The walls are lined with painted scenes, fields of barley, boats on the Nile, families embracing under blue skies, and yes, rows upon rows of green lettuce drawn upright like sacred sentinels. At the end of the corridor, you enter the burial chamber. It's not dark. Not exactly. A single oil lamp flickers from a stone niche, casting gentle golden light on a beautifully painted sarcophagus. The figure carved on the lid wears a serene expression. Not sadness, not fear. Just rest. Beside the sarcophagus, offerings are carefully arranged. Amulets, bread loaves, perfume jars, and a small ceramic bowl holding 3 perfectly preserved heads of lettuce. You step closer. They're not fresh, of course. These are carved from alabaster, their leaves etched with fine detail. The shine of their surface catches the lamplight, making them seem alive somehow. Waiting. Soft voice breaks the stillness. The tomb keeper, an older woman with sand-colored robes and a voice like linen, speaks as if continuing a conversation you began in another life. They believe the body sleeps, but the spirit dreams, and to dream well, one must be fed. You nod. Lettuce, she continues, was a gift not just for the body, but for the journey. It calmed the dead, helped them rest, helped them remember. Some tombs, she explains, included entire lettuce gardens, carved into the walls or painted across the ceilings, a wish for ongoing renewal, even beyond breath. Others contained scrolls with instructions for sacred sleep, including recipes for lettuce tonics to guide the soul safely to the field of reeds, Egypt's green, eternal afterlife. You sit beside the offerings, the stone cool beneath you. It's peaceful here. Still, but not empty. Some historians say lettuce was simply a symbol of fertility, included in tombs out of habit. Others believe it represented eternal calm, the kind of rest unbothered by memory, by worry, by time. You lean back against the wall and glance at a painting behind you, the departed standing in a lush green field, lettuce blooming at their feet, a soft smile on their lips. It's not just paradise, it's peace. You look again at the alabaster heads of lettuce, silent, timeless, more sincere than any flower ever laid on a grave. Maybe this was the point all along, that rest, real, complete, forgiving rest, isn't only for the end, it's for the middle. It's for the wandering, it's for now. The tomb keeper offers you a cushion and a cup. You sip, it's the familiar tonic, but sweeter here somehow, earthier, like it's been waiting to be understood. You lie back, let the hush of limestone and moonlight fold over you. Tomorrow, you'll hear the stories of the priests who used lettuce to read dreams and guide choices. But tonight, you close your eyes in the company of the still, the remembered, the deeply, deeply rested. Let the stars whisper, let the leaves stand watch, let the stone remember for you. You are safe, and sleep is sacred. The air feels older. Not stale, just steeped. Like a room that's held centuries of silence and is finally ready to speak. You're still in the tomb, though the light has changed. Morning is seeping in from somewhere above, catching the gold in the wall paintings and making the lettuce leaves shimmer just slightly, like they're alive, just enough to make you wonder. The tomb keeper is gone, but her voice seems to linger in the air, echoing with the reverence of ritual. You rise, stretch quietly, and make your way up and out of the burial chamber, ascending the sloped corridor into sunlight. And as you emerge, you're met by a man in a long indigo robe, his arms full of scrolls and sleep in his eyes. He introduces himself as a priest of dreamcraft. Not quite an oracle, not quite a physician. His role is more delicate, to interpret dreams, to help others understand what their sleeping selves are trying to say. And yes, lettuce is involved. He leads you to a small stone pavilion near the temple gardens. Inside, a group of scribes sits cross-legged on woven mats, each with a brush, an ink pot, and a small plate of lettuce. One by one, they nibble a leaf, close their eyes, breathe deeply, and begin to write. This, the priest says, is where the dreams are decoded. You watch as one scribe draws a swirling spiral. Another sketches a cat wearing sandals. A third simply writes the word wait over and over again. All of it, every line, every symbol, is sacred. The priest hands you a piece of papyrus and a brush. Write what you remember, he says. You hesitate, then slowly begin to record fragments of the tomb dream, the fig tree, the carved lettuce, the feeling of your name being whispered by walls. You finish, look up. The priest smiles gently. You've been heard. You ask him how lettuce plays into all of this. He chuckles. It's a doorway, he says. Taken before sleep, it quiets the noise, makes the messages clearer. Even the nonsense begins to make sense. He shows you a scroll, centuries old, its edges fraying. It lists dozens of recorded dreams, some cryptic, some hilarious. I was a goose, the sun applauded, woke thirsty. A boat filled with teeth, interpret as anxiety. She offered me lettuce. I said no, she vanished. Guilt? You laugh. But not mockingly, these dreams feel familiar, personal. Ancient, yes, but also timeless. The priest leans in. We believe the gods spoke in dreams, but they didn't shout. They hinted through symbols, through shadows, through plants. He hands you a small amulet, a flat disc with a lettuce leaf etched in bronze. To remember, he says, not what you dreamed, but that you can. You thank him. Some historians view these dream interpretation rituals as early psychology. Others say it was more spiritual, a way to bridge the unknowable gap between life and the divine. But all agree, ancient Egyptians took their dreams seriously, and they gave them space to breathe. You sit with the scribes a while longer. The breeze stirs the papyrus pages. A flute plays faintly in the distance. You chew another small bite of lettuce and close your eyes. Not to sleep, but to listen. Tomorrow, you'll revisit the lettuce's slow decline, how it faded from temple to table and eventually into salad bowls. But today, you carry a page of dreams, a bronze leaf, and the sense that maybe, just maybe, your quietest thoughts are worth writing down. The scroll is still warm in your hands as you leave the dream pavilion, the ink barely dry and already precious. You tuck it gently into your robe. Outside, the light is stronger now, midday sun pressing gold onto stone and sand. But something has shifted. The energy is different, slower, softer. You're walking through the edge of the temple gardens where vines curl around cracked walls and reeds whisper lullabies in the breeze. A gardener passes you with a bundle of limp greens in his arms, and for the first time on this journey, the lettuce looks tired, faded, forgotten. You follow him. He stops at a compost mound near a crumbling shrine. There, he lays the wilted leaves down with care, muttering something under his breath. A small ritual, maybe. Or just habit. This patch used to grow for the gods, he says without turning. Now it feeds the chickens. You nod, unsure what to say, because in a way, you've arrived at the part of the story that feels like a soft goodbye. The decline of lettuce. It didn't happen suddenly. There was no grand decree, just a slow shift. Beliefs changed, priorities moved, the gods grew quiet, and the sacred lettuce, once praised in hymns, paraded through streets and offered to the dead, became a side dish. You visit a nearby house, the kind once owned by middle-class scribes or retired temple servants. In the courtyard, there's a small herb patch, mint, garlic, a few drooping lettuce stalks, nothing ceremonial, just food. Inside, on a faded wall painting, a woman is depicted offering bread to her child. Beside the bread, a small salad. It feels ordinary, and somehow a little sad. You make your way through town, noticing signs of the shift everywhere. A market stall with wilted greens no one's buying. A temple wall where Min's once proud lettuce is chipped away, replaced by new symbols. Falcons, ankhs, suns. A child tossing a lettuce leaf into a stream, laughing as it floats away like a paper boat. Some historians say the lettuce lost its holiness as Egypt changed. New gods, new rulers, new trades. Others argue that its sacredness was never lost, just absorbed, that the quiet reverence for nature, rest, and growth simply moved underground, tucked into customs, superstitions, and lullabies. You find an elderly woman sitting outside her doorway, weaving. She smiles at you, gestures for you to sit. As she works, she hums a tune, gentle, repetitive, like the sway of reeds in the Nile. You ask about the song. It's for sleep, she says. My grandmother sang it. Said lettuce used to help the gods dream. You smile. So maybe it's not gone. Not really. Maybe some things don't disappear. They soften. They trade their temples for kitchens, their altars for garden beds, their statues for lullabies. You lie down on a sun-warmed stone wall, the breeze curling around your ankles like a cat. Above you, birds trace loops in the sky, and you wonder, if sacredness isn't about grandeur, maybe it's about attention, about how gently you hold something, about whether you remember it at all. Tomorrow, you'll walk back to where it all began, the garden under stars, the rustle of upright leaves, the whisper of gods through roots. But tonight, let yourself rest with this. The sacred lettuce didn't die. It just learned to grow quietly. The path back is familiar now. The sun lowers, casting long shadows that stretch across the stone like the arms of memory. You walk quietly, letting each footstep echo, not loudly, just enough to remind the ground you're still here. The city hums behind you, gentle and distant. The air carries the scent of warm earth, fading flowers, and the faintest trace of dried herbs. You're returning to where it began. The garden. Not the royal one, not the ceremonial, not the marketplace. Just the garden, where sacred things once grew with purpose, pride, and a curious kind of peace. It hasn't changed much. The fig trees still lean lazily over the stone bench. The lettuce, taller now, stands in soft rows, upright and quiet. The same breeze you met on your first night here greets you again, brushing your cheek like a friend who doesn't need to say hello. You sit, not because you're tired, but because it feels right. A gardener passes by. Maybe the same one from before, maybe not. He nods. No words, just a knowing. You reach out and touch one of the leaves. It's firm, cool, and carries that same bitter green scent. You close your eyes and breathe in. This is the end of the journey, but it doesn't feel like an ending. It feels like a return. A loop closed gently. You think of all the places you've been. Temples, tombs, palaces, markets. Of all the things lettuce stood for, fertility, rest, dreams, even taxes. You think of gods and thieves, lullabies and tonics, scribed dreams and sacred silliness, and somehow this quiet garden means more than all of them. Because here lettuce was never gold. It didn't need to be. It was something simpler, something truer. It grew. Somewhere nearby, someone is singing, softly, off-key, but with feeling. A lullaby, maybe, or a prayer. You lie back on the bench. The sky is turning violet. One star appears, then another. The garden hums in that way only ancient places do, where the soil remembers more than any scroll, where every leaf tells a story with no beginning, no need for an ending. You close your eyes, not to forget, but to let go of all the noise, of all the urgency, of everything that isn't this exact moment of peace. Tomorrow, you'll wake in the world again, the one with alarms, emails, and uninspired salads. But tonight, you sleep in the garden, with the gods, with the dreams, with the green. Night wraps itself around the garden like a soft blanket. The stars above don't sparkle, they glow like embers nestled in a hearth, steady and sure. The air is still, not because it's empty, but because it's full, with memory, with calm, with a hush that reaches into your bones. You haven't moved from the stone bench. There's no need to. The world, for once, is holding still with you. You breathe in. The scent of the lettuce plants is faint now, no longer crisp and sharp, but mellow, earthy, settled, like even they know the story has come to rest. Somewhere in the distance, a reed flute begins to play, slowly, sleepily. It doesn't call you anywhere. It doesn't summon a god or a feast or a festival. It simply says, stay. You smile, eyes half-lidded, mind drifting somewhere between ancient memory and gentle dream. A figure passes through the garden, maybe the gardener, maybe the dream priest, maybe Min himself in one of his quieter moods. He pauses beside the tallest lettuce stalk and rests a hand on it gently as if checking for a pulse. Then he walks on. You feel no need to follow, because tonight everything has come to you. All the sacred rituals, all the strange truths, all the soft, absurd, glorious reverence for Ant that somehow came to represent everything humans ever wanted. Peace, growth, sleep, continuity, renewal. You look at the stars once more, and for the first time you understand why the ancient Egyptians believed they were the souls of the dead sailing forever through the sky. They don't demand attention. They just are. Like lettuce. You laugh softly at that thought. Somewhere an ancient scribe would approve. Your hand brushes the small amulet in your pocket, the one shaped like a leaf. You press it against your chest, where your heartbeat slows and deepens, like a lullaby told in Morse code. The wind moves once more through the leaves, but it no longer whispers. And you do too, because now, finally, you're part of the story. Not as a visitor, not even as a dreamer, but as someone who has rested here, and in doing so has helped it continue. The garden fades, the stars blur, your thoughts soften into shapes, then into colors, then into nothing at all, only breath, only stillness, only sleep. End of script. Sweet dreams.